Hello and welcome to Reading the Gospels Together for Thursday, June the 25th. And today we're reading the second part of Luke chapter 24, the Road to Emmaus event, verses 13 through 35. Now, while this is doubtless the recounting of an event which actually happened, Luke tells it in the form of a sermon, laying out a lesson in how the death and resurrection of Jesus came to be both understood and experienced by the early believers. What I'll try to do today is point out the lessons Luke is trying to teach us through his account. So, he starts this way. Now, that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. That same day, as the morning of the resurrection, two of them, it says, meaning two followers of Jesus who had been with the apostles, gathered together in the upper room house where they had heard, but disbelieved, the testimony of the women who had visited the tomb, and of Peter, who came back scratching his head. These two decided that it was high time to leave Jerusalem and head for safer quarters. Now, they were talking with each other about everything that had happened, we read. So here's Luke's lesson number 1, talking with one another about the events of the faith, sharing again and again the stories of Jesus, committing them to memory, which is how Luke got his eyewitness material upon how his gospel is based. That's an important characteristic of how we are to live. How often do we talk with others about our faith or the stories of Jesus? How deeply have we internalized them ourselves? Luke goes on. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked among them. Now, that's significant. As we share the faith with one another, as we enter into those stories of Jesus, we enter into the presence of Jesus, who journeys together with us. Then we read, but they were kept from recognizing him. Now, that's a theme throughout the Gospels. Those who witness the resurrected Jesus are uncertain regarding his identity. Had he changed so remarkably? Or is there something else going on? It seems to indicate that they were prevented somehow from seeing who Jesus truly is. Talking about him isn't enough. We have to experience him somehow. What can help us to recognize Jesus? Well, we'll soon find out. We read then, he asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? What things? He asked. So now we know the identity of one of the walkers, a man named Cleopas, and another unnamed disciple. We haven't met Cleopas yet. It is possible, in fact, likely, that he's the same man identified in the Gospel of John, chapter 19, verse 25, as Clopas, whose wife, Mary, was said to be a witness of the crucifixion. Yet another Mary to try to keep straight. It's possible, even likely, that Clopas's companion is his wife, Mary. Now notice that their faces are downcast. They do not yet understand that the tragic story of the crucifixion is about to take a surprising turn. They ask how on earth their new companion could not have heard about the crucifixion, which had apparently been big news, even beyond that group of believers. It's our responsibility to not assume that everyone has heard the story of Jesus. We must tell it. And so they tell what they know. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what's more, it's the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. So they give a quick summary of the events of those past 3 days. Now, how would you summarize the events of what happened to Jesus in Jerusalem, or explain it to someone else? Isn't that important? Luke gives us this example. Now, note that they describe the angel appearance as a vision, and that they say some of our companions went to the tomb, not just Peter. John's gospel says it was Peter and John. And now Jesus responds. He said to them, how foolish you are and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. You see, it's only in retrospect that the believers understand that the suffering servant spoken of in the Old Testament and the Psalms is in fact the long-awaited Messiah. This explanation by Jesus, excuse me, is one that would have been nice for Luke to have included. But if you read Psalms 2, 16, 22, and 118, and Isaiah chapter 50 and chapter 52 and chapter 53, you'll get a pretty good idea of what Jesus outlined to them. Then we read, as they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, stay with us, it's nearly evening, the day is almost over. So he went in to stay with them. This is important. Had they not extended hospitality and invited their new companion to stay with them, they never would have understood who Jesus was. It's only upon their invitation that Jesus can be revealed to them. Hospitality was a central Christian attribute, so much so that many Christians kept a guest room in their home to be able to offer shelter to any and to all. Well, we then read, when he was at table with them, he took bread, excuse me, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. You see, it's through participation in the community of faith and in the celebration of the sacraments, in the telling the story of Jesus and understanding him as the Messiah, that he's revealed to us as who he is. Luke is saying that it's only within the Christian community and through study and worship that Jesus can be fully revealed to us. Take this to heart. It's why it's so vitally important for us to invite people in to our community of faith. They cannot understand who Jesus is otherwise. Well, they asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? It's through the study of the scriptures that understanding comes and the witness of the Holy Spirit as we do so together in the community of faith. Then we read, they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, it's true, the Lord has risen and appeared to Simon. And then the two told what happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. Again, it's to the upper room they return, to the 11 and the others. And the minute they come through the door, they're told that the news of the resurrection has already broken in. Jesus, in an event we don't hear about in the Gospels, but instead in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, chapter 15, has appeared to Peter. Him they believe. And now those others can add the witness of their own experience. What does this tell us? Well, we have the testimony of the apostles, Peter in this case, called by his other name Simon. But we also have our own testimony to share of how we have encountered Jesus through our participation in the life of the church. So you see that Luke's story sermon of the Emmaus Road encounter teaches us a lot about how we encounter Jesus, how we understand Jesus, how he's revealed to us, and how we can share that story too. So tomorrow, together with everyone gathered in that room, it's our turn to meet the risen Lord. Chapter 24, part 3. We'll see you then.